Hello and welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you've been able to take a couple of minutes just for a quick comfort break before we move on to our next section. So our next section is all about celebrating best practice, and we're joined today by Mark Talbot and Jen Rogers to have this conversation. This is really about us thinking about celebrating best practice across the country and across all ages. So what we will do is take the time to review best practice across health and education in addressing structural inequalities. Before I introduce our next speakers, I just want to encourage you all, as you listen to them, to have a think about your own conversations and your own individual practice. Consider for yourselves what's currently working well for you, and based on everything that we've heard in this conference today, and I appreciate there's an awful lot to take away, I'd really encourage you to think about what is it that you can be doing differently moving forwards that's going to make the biggest impact on your practice. So that's two things just to think about whilst you listen to Mark and Jen. That's what are you currently doing that's working well for you, and what could you be doing differently? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mark. So Mark is a consultant in palliative medicine and he's an honorary professor in Cardiff. He's the strategic lead for advanced planning and future planning for NHS Wales. He enjoys exploring how popular media and music can help break down barriers and taboos. And interestingly, he's written an article for the Washington Post on this topic, which has garnered thousands of responses suggesting song choices for the end of life. So I'll leave it there. I'll let Mark say more. And over to you, Mark.
Hi, Helen, and thanks for the kind introduction. I am live, everyone. Hello. So hopefully nothing can go wrong. It's been a busy day so far. So sorry if I've been dipping in and out a bit, but there's been a palliative care clinic and we've managed to get through a palliative care MDT in parallel, but there may be a bit of background noise and bleeps and various things in the background there. But yes, so clearly I'm not Noel Edmonds, I'm not Tony Blackburn, I'm not Reggie Yates, but today is going to be us talking about music, and this is the hardest presentation I have ever done in my entire life, coming up with a top 10 to do advanced care planning to top 10 for what matters most conversations. It's been incredibly difficult. But just to kind of tell you some of my passion for this topic, why am I fascinated by this? Well, I think when you start to feel love or grief or fear or despair, every song in the universe is addressed to you personally. And that's not just my work, but that of psychologist Anushka Groves. If you're interested in this topic, we sort of mine our own meanings from all these tunes that are around us all the time and that have followed us through our lives. And songs and stories are good because they show us that you are far from alone with some of the things that we have to deal with and cope with. And they can spur us on into looking at our present and our future as well. They're small prefabricated packages of expressed emotion that we can use to help our own emotions and let them out, because we can be quite emotionally repressed. But here are these little packages of emotion that you can get on vinyl or CD or from whatever device you listen to your music from. Think about All by Myself in the Bridget Jones Diary film. You know, I mean, what a package of emotion that single song is, and how everyone can really relate to that. So I'm going to try and see if I can share my screen and my PowerPoint, but yeah, make of all of this today what you wish, and try and integrate it into your practice as much as you can. But right now, let me see where we are. Get this. Yeah, so this is my very garish screen, a bit of a contrast to the previous speakers, I'm afraid. Yeah, top 10 all-time tunes to discuss what matters most. Whilst I try to continue the slides, which does not seem to be working all too well. We're good. So yeah, a lot of the research, a lot of the articles, a lot of the media that I looked at in preparation for this talk focused on what matters most to people regarding their funeral music choices, which of course is an important topic. But actually few of them focused on music during dying moments. Some people chose songs about love and heartbreak and regret. There's actually a fair bit of academic literature on this if you ever want to have a little look on music in the last months of life, and it's more than I expected, certainly, especially from sociologists who sort of using autoethnographic examples. But yeah, so here's one example. So this is from 2016 by Tracy McConnell and team, but it was a systematic review with the aim of looking at the effectiveness of music therapy versus standard care alone or standard care in combination with other therapies for improving psychological, physiological, and social outcomes among adult patients in any care setting. Interesting, this one found that it didn't actually support the use of music therapy to improve overall quality of life in palliative care. But we found that that there is some link up with it, and that there's some importance of it, and that people integrate it. And in the journal Mortality, which I know you're all avid readers of, I'm certainly a regular subscriber, we've got some interesting sociological research which looks at how music can open up opportunities for action and social relation at the end of life, including what matters conversations. So music as a dynamic medium for the collective performance of what it means to be well or ill, and what it can mean to be alive, dying, or dead. So I've now managed to make this sound semi-scientific for some of you, but really there is a lot of stuff out there on music, end-of-life care, and how it can facilitate conversations. How you all will integrate some of the choices today in terms of what we looked at into your daily practice is completely up to you. And I sometimes give these slightly kooky and out-of-the-box presentations because I think I'm quite an imaginative person, and I think sometimes a bit of imagination and a bit of creativity.
That's a bit weird to me.
Thanks, Jonathan. A bit of imagination and creativity in healthcare circles can actually be sometimes goes amiss a little bit. So how we can integrate music and other mediums and other media into our daily conversations with patients and what matters most is just so important. So yeah, I mean, it was a mix of things. I spoke to colleagues, I spoke to patients in my clinics and on the wards. I spoke to people on Twitter, and the question really was what music they'd listen to if writing down end-of-life thoughts, feelings, fears, concerns, advanced care plans, etc., etc. So the question wasn't what you want to have at your funeral, but those answers, of course, always come up again whenever you post on the topic. Very diverse. I mean, interesting to look at some of the song choices. And if someone wanted to do a proper study of this, I would be the first reader of it. But 71% chose songs with titles that dealt directly with the theme of death and dying. 17% chose songs that had a theme of signing out with, contentment, a good life, or that feel they'd had a good innings. 33% chose songs that dealt with the beauty of life. I mean, I felt you could nearly do a real thematic analysis on various song titles that people choose, because it was so rich and the titles were so choose and the topic area. So great for a new form of sort of qualitative research, I feel. Less than 2% chose music with no lyrics at all. James Norris was a keen supporter of that one because he felt lyrics very distracting, and so he wouldn't be able to concentrate on his plans and thoughts for the future, really. So yeah, choosing this top 10 took a very long time and was in no way biased. Okay, and 5% of respondents had playlists for the theme of end-of-life care, and I've actually provided a playlist at the end of this, provided by one Twitterati. So yeah, some of the Twitter responses here, I hope you can see this, but lots of different themes came up. And also in my conversations, things like the flaming lips came up time and time again. The Clash, the Subhumans. Ali Medic didn't want to give any answers because we can all imagine the heavy metal themes that he would come up with. Only the Good Die Young by Nicola White there. Gemma Allen actually came up with the Ernie Change the Plan song for if you needed to change your advanced care plan. So she's already thinking a step ahead here, which I thought was great. Yeah, so some more sort of silent, non-lyrical music here from James Norris. Some great suggestions by Robert Smith, not the Robert Smith from The Cure, no, but the palliative care medic Robert Smith. And I think he'll be very happy with some of the top 10 choices later on. Toby Dennen, I'm afraid Radiohead hasn't made it into the top 10. I know, scandal, terrible, it should, but not on this occasion. And Rob Brutnick, I'm afraid, Nick Cave, one of my personal favorites, has also not made it. I had to be as unbiased as I possibly could. But you can see here some of the song choices are repeats and coming up repeatedly. So you do start after a while seeing some repeat patterns in this, a lot of Sinatra in there, and yeah, so a few playlists as well, including by Joanna Giddens. Thank you for some of the choices there. So you can see this topic always garners a lot of interest, and if you wanted to have another one for funeral song choices, then do look at my Washington Post article, because that had literally thousands of responses, including thousands of responses on Twitter with some very strange stuff. Oh, Mike, what have you? Yes, yeah, Mike, that one has definitely made it onto the top 10. Apologies for the pre-watershed moment there. Okay, so yeah, let's start. So top 10 in number 10, and because I've felt patient and carer preference has to come in here. A few of my patient and carer representatives, sort of friends, colleagues, and contacts have had their say on this one. And in position number 10, and for copyright reasons, I'm not allowed to play this, unfortunately. We have Not Now John, a song by Pink Floyd, and yeah, I think I think that was chosen for very obvious reasons. If you look at the lyrics there, we'll move on quickly, as they sometimes do in Top of the Pops, from one to another without playing the tunes. In number 9, some of you may know this, but this was nominated again by a patient. New Order, True Faith. And I think this was one of the sort of examples of a song that doesn't necessarily directly deal with death and dying, but actually deals about life and how you can sometimes feel very empowered in difficult moments in time. So if you haven't heard of this one, or I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, then take a look at this one, because I think it's certainly an interesting one to look out for. Yes, this one, an all-time classic, which came up repeatedly, is Yesterday. And I thought it was just very interesting to see how some of the tunes that came up really dealt with the past and thinking about the past. And perhaps, you know, all of us are here right now, and we're all formed through various aspects of our past and our different lives, and our future choices and what we choose are very much formed by that. So Yesterday seemed like a fitting choice, and I just wish I could play them here. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be just the best? Then you wouldn't have to listen to me wittering on and trying to explain these song choices to you. I think we should have this every year, by the way. So we should have this sort of format every year. I called it an all-time playlist, but no, of course, this can change. And yes, this fairly obvious one suggested by several people, Stairway to Heaven, which deals with the topic more directly. You know, that kind of has a lot of significance for a lot of people, and in fact is also a funeral song choice for quite a few. And yes, as I said, in number six, we've got the Flaming Lips, Do You Realize? I must admit, I didn't know this one, and I feel like a real, I feel very much out of the loop now that I didn't know this one. But when I listen to it, it is a very, very powerful song, And you can see in some of the YouTube comments, which I've clipped over here, that it is something that people play to remember others by. So some very emotional, what matters most type comments and conversations that can be found sometimes in the YouTube clips of popular song choices. Aretha Franklin. So Robert Smith's going to be very happy with this one, and in no way referencing any sort of forms or approaches used in England, because other forms are also available. Hello from Wales. But RESPECT, respect by Aretha Franklin. So, you know, it's something that is just very important to people, their dignity, looking back and looking forward as well. So that this one came up repeatedly. Interestingly, also other song choices by Aretha Franklin, her sort of struggle, her fight with all the things that she dealt with, were very big themes in this area, which I thought was very interesting. Now, a bit of controversy. In number 4, Knocking on Heaven's Door. And some of you might be crying out now saying it should be the original by Bob Dylan. But I had a few sort of people come in and say, have you heard the Anthony and the Johnsons version? And now I'm a big fan of Anthony and the Johnsons. I've even been to one of his wonderful concerts in Bristol, and he's a superb singer. And I really didn't know that he'd done a version of Knocking on Heaven's Door. And it is mind-blowing. I mean, in my view, it should probably be number 1, but the metrics didn't work out for that one. But what a fantastic song! And if you have a chance to listen to this one, I promise you, if you've not written your advanced care plan by the end of this song, then I'll send you a cake or something like that, because it's truly an astounding song. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're moving on very quickly. I'm sure I'm doing fantastically well for time. In number 3, we have Who Wants to Live Forever by Queen. So that was a very popular song choice. And again, it's about living forever or not living forever, and love as well. And these themes, these sort of pre-packaged emotions, as I said earlier, they do come up time and time again. And in number 2, we have Frank Sinatra, I Did It My Way, a very, very popular choice that comes up time and time again. Oops, I've given the winner away. All going wrong. Yeah, but one of my cystic fibrosis patients told me that she felt we all need sort of really tangible things to remind us of moments in our lives, which I thought was really interesting, and treasured things to reflect on and return to. Songs she felt can function like that, and being reminded of the past can help us think about the future, including what matters most, thinking. Listening to important songs is empowering. Songwriters can help us express those sometimes repressed emotions that are so openly expressed in the song itself, be it by Sinead O'Connor, Frank Sinatra, David Bowie, Nina Simone, Nick Cave, or Kate LeBon. So a real mix there, and Frank Sinatra really comes up time and time again in these choices. And the winner is Cher. Oops, someone has put a radio on in the office next door, and I can't possibly tell them to stop it. But if only I could turn back time by Cher is in number 1, and it came up through several people. I thought it would be Louis Armstrong's It's a Wonderful Life, and that song does deserve a very special mention, but this one by Cher came up time and time again with people I spoke to, and when you are in a very emotional state of mind, every song in the world can feel like a sort of personal, inscribed message to you, which is part of the sort of beauty of songs and singing. So this song came from professionals, but actually interesting also from carers and people who'd been looking after people, and when they'd reflected back about what had happened to their loved one and about the advanced care planning or the absence of advanced care planning, really. And so I felt, and others felt, it really encapsulated good what matters most conversations, looking back, but also looking at the current moment and learning from the past, and looking forward into the future as well. And that is me really. And if you haven't quite had enough of this kind of I hope you don't think it's silly in any sort of way. I think music is very much part of how we work and how we function, and it's always been a big part of my life. But if you want to look at it a bit more, The Guardian looked into this a few years ago in some considerable detail, and came up with a very long playlist of songs that are important in life, but also in dying. And do have a look at this. And I've also posted here Cat Sullivan's Message in a Bottle playlist, which I thought was really good as well. And perhaps you have your own playlist that you want to share with us on Twitter today. And yeah, I think I hope you found this interesting, and thank you very much. If I could turn back time, by share is the winner today. So thank you very much, and I will now stop my screen share.
Thank you so much, Mark. Perfect timing. And you'll be pleased to know that you were saved quite literally by that radio, because a number of people have commented on how they wish you had sung those songs. So
oh yes,
oh
yes, yeah. I better not. I mean, I do think I have a nice singing voice, but others may beg to differ. So I should have gotten some audience participation. I mean, Helen, do you want to have a go at singing one of those tunes?
Oh goodness, no.
My Way,
no.
How about Catherine? Do you want to sing the Pink Floyd tune with the swear words bleeped out? I thought it was a great patient choice, that one.
You first, Mark. You first. It was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And absolutely, if next time you want to come back and sing all the way through it, that would be fab.
Yeah,
great. Thank you once again.
If people want to sort of post sort of comments or other choices, basically, I'm all ears, and maybe that can be next year's playlist or top 10. We can have one on a regular basis.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you ever so much, Mark. And now we're going to move swiftly on to Jen Rogers' talk. So Jen, hi Jen.
Hi everyone.
By way of introduction, so Jen is Deputy Nurse Director at NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde in Scotland, and in her session today Jen is sharing with us her experience of developing an approach of asking, listening and doing what matters within paediatrics and beyond. So over to you, Jen.
Yeah. Okay, so you heard from Maureen earlier, and 10 years, it was actually 10 years ago in 2012 that we had that springtime in Paris, and I was lucky enough, I was a senior charge nurse in a paediatric ward and in Paisley actually, and I was lucky enough to be able to go to Paris and hear Maureen speak, and she just really hit something that I thought, I've been thinking about this for years, you know, that kind of what's the matter, a really kind of negative focused question to what matters question, and that was the real takeaway I took from that conference. And I've thought for a while before that we really kind of make up what we think is important to people. So we do it in our lives. I think we're a family, and we think we know what people are thinking. We'll say, I know what they're thinking, and we don't. And we do it with our patients. We make assumptions about what people want and need, and we didn't ask them. And in paediatrics, I think we probably make assumptions even more. So this idea was about really kind of flipping around those assumptions. I just like this slide, that idea, completely reframing like the conversation that you're having. So I went back to the ward that I was a senior charge nurse of and thought, well, I can just do something with this right now. It doesn't cost anything. I'm the senior charge nurse, so that's like being the chief exec of your ward. So I thought I'll just start a wee project, and I spoke to the team in the little huddles that I had set up, and said, okay, we're going to stop asking what's wrong and what's the matter and focusing our conversations around that on ward rounds and in our interactions. I'm going to ask what matters. And all the folk are like, oh, here she goes, you know, again with another, like, what's she doing? They'll just say Nintendo, or like, they just made assumptions like, oh, they'll just say this or they'll just say that. And actually, the first wee boy we asked, Matthew, 7-year-old, cystic fibrosis, I knew him really well. He was in and out all the time having IV antibiotics. The first thing, so what I did was got them to draw a picture or write a list about what mattered to them as a sort of starter. as a small scale project. And Matthew, the first thing he wrote on it was that I get the right medicine. And this was a wee cheeky chappie that hung about with the nurses at the nurses station. And, you know, you would never have thought that that was what was on his mind. He would never have articulated that in a different way. And straight away, I began to realise that we just made assumptions about what kids were thinking, and we didn't really know what they were thinking. So I started this little project using just the model for improvement in the ward, and thought, right, what we want to do is actually ask and listen to what people, young people, children, families actually want and need, rather than assuming that we know already. So pretty basic. How will we know? Well, I collected process data on, like, did we ask people or didn't we? So the numbers that we asked, and some outcome data of, like, what was patients and families and staff's experience of that, and did we actually do anything different around about that? And the change, of course, was asking children to draw or write a list of what matters to them, and putting that above their bed or on their bedroom door, wherever they want. So yeah, what kind of happened next was, I mean, it really was amazing. This was Declan. Declan was stuck in a room actually on his own. His mum had to be at home with the other children, and he had broke his leg, and he was in for ages. And number one, no moaning. Amazing. So this kind of like chat also gives you permission, I think, to create a different culture within a team. So it's difficult as a senior charge nurse or to say, right, everybody, you have to look happy today. But if the kids are saying it matters to us that the nurses are happy, you know, I'm lying in the bed and the two nurses that are making the bed are saying, oh, this is my third shift on, you know, I mean, it's not going to make you feel any better. So we talked a lot about that kind of thing as a team. So lots of things started to happen based on what the children and the young people said to us. And after a wee bit of time, we began to realise that children that weren't able to, it's quite obvious really, they weren't able to draw or write, we should still capture what matters to them. So we did that with their families, and we got to the point quite quickly where it was a case where everybody in the unit would have a what matters to you poster. And the important thing about the tool and it being a poster that the children did themselves was one around like that permission, ownership and all that kind of like that's taken away from you when you're quite often in a hospital environment, especially as a young person, but as an adult as well. But also your interactions aren't just with nurses or doctors that are looking at a medical note about maybe a care plan. They're with the domestics, they're with the catering team, they're with a physio or HP, they're with somebody that's in to fix the sink, they're with a whole range of people. And so that gives that whole range of people a bit of an in about you, and you can put people at ease. So people generally really liked it, and a few people on this conference today have talked about seeing a person, you know, not a patient, or seeing not the disease, all of that kind of thing. And this is within that same principle. So Maureen already spoke about Kendra. So what happened after a year or so in that unit doing that was I started doing some wee posters at conferences and things like that. And then I was asked to go to to spread this throughout the whole of Children's Hospital in Glasgow. Now, I think it's really important to say in this that when people present about what matters to me, sometimes it comes across like it's an easy thing to do. It's like, oh, that's great, and everybody was suddenly doing it, but it is not. And when I went over to Glasgow, I did a QI job, and I did 3 big projects at the same time. And one was implementing hospital safety huddles, and no one had ever heard of huddles at that time, 10 years ago or 9 years ago, in the west of Scotland anyway. And one was about active care rounding, so some of you have heard of that. And one was this, what matters to you. And I thought this would be the easiest one in my naivety, and it was definitely the most difficult. And the reasons for that, I'm sure you've all experienced, are I could talk about them for a long time, but we don't have time today. But it's definitely challenging. But what helped me was this Kendra story. So what matters is kind of abstract for some people, and then other people will just get it. But what really helped to spread it was the stories. And Maureen spoke about Kendra's story already, so I won't go back into the story, but Kendra's story, the fact that Kendra had done this What Matters to You with her and her dad, and she had needs very specific to her. And one of the things with Kendra was her way of saying hello, because she was non-verbal autism, her way of saying hello was to stroke people's hair. And when her dad got taken away off to another hospital in Glasgow with a Curie MI, if she had went to grab people's hair, people would have thought she was maybe being aggressive, or they would have managed that in a really different way. But because she had this What Matters to Me, it's questions you just wouldn't ask in a nursing or a medical assessment. It's things that you just wouldn't have found out. They were able to really look after Kendra and her individual needs as if they knew her when they had only just met her that day. And that story kind of reverberated around the hospital, and people were like, wow, because people come to work to do the best they can for their patients and families. And people really thought, wow, this could actually make a difference. And that was a really big turning point for the What Matters to Me. So I'm going to see if I can get it to work now. So it started to spread around from there, and I've got loads and loads of different stories I can tell. Well, I've chosen a couple of my favourites. So one of them, this is my lovely colleague Neil Patel, who's a neonatologist in Glasgow. And he, so I kind of worked with him. He became an SPSP fellow as well. And he wanted to do a sort of What Matters project in the neonatal unit. And so he was doing this kind of project and linked into VCreate, linked into sort of family integrated care, so FI care. And he had a conversation one day with the dad, and the dad said, you know what matters to me? How come I can see a video of my car when it's getting an MOT, but my baby's in the neonatal and we have to be, you know, home with other kids at work, because kids are in there for a really long time. And I can't see any kind of wee video of my baby. And so Neil thought, okay. So he contacted Arnold Clark, I think it was, and they were like, don't think we can do that. So anyway, he contacted a kind of little tiny company that did it for garages, and they said, right, okay, we'll give it a go. And so he worked with this guy, and they came up with a secure video messaging specifically around neonates for the hospital. And so now that company's called VCreate, and it's made such a massive difference to these families. So the families get a secure little video that the nurses love to send. So there's a bit of joy and work in it. The nurses make all sorts of little funny videos with music and cuddly toys dancing around the baby, and it just brings great joy to the staff and to the families, and the families keep these wee video clips as part of forever, as part of their sort of memory of the experience as well. I wanted you to listen to just a wee thoughts from a parent. So this spread, it started there in Glasgow, and now it's in 60 different units around the UK and some international units as well, just from a What Matters conversation. So let's see if this wee video works.
Hi, I just basically want to say thank you to VCreate, because when my son Max was in the NICU, it was a very, very hard time, but at Durham Valley Hospital, they used you guys and all your product, and it was just amazing, especially when you're having a bad time. Just to receive a message or a picture or a video just really keeps you going. There's just one time that really sticks out in my mind, and I was up in the middle of the night, it was about 3 AM, and I wasn't doing very well expressing, and I felt very alone and very sad, and just felt very useless at the time, that I couldn't carry my baby full term, and now I can't produce his milk, and I was in a very, very low place. And then a video popped up, and it was him moving and kicking his legs, and that just kept me going, to know that he was fighting, so I needed to carry on fighting and not give up. Just thank you to you guys for keeping us going, and you don't realise how something so simple can keep your spirits so high and just give you a little bit of hope every night when you're having a bad day.
So another thing that came out of the neonates, the conversation was around families waiting at the door to get in. So neonatal units are generally locked, as most paediatric and intensive care and wards are. So you ring the door and you have to wait there, and it's busy and you can be waiting there for a long time. And I've got personal experience of this, having premature twins myself and standing at the door waiting, and you think, oh, is there something wrong with my baby? You know, why am I waiting? Can they not see me? And you're anxious anyway. So what we did, after talking to the families, we put in fingerprint recognition. And this sounds simple, but it was really quite a big shift for a neonatal unit where staff are very protective of that environment, to flipping around this concept of, you know, we are visitors in the lives of these families. Like, so this is not prison, this is families that we're looking after. So the parents should be able to come in and out anytime to see their baby, and we shouldn't be adding anxiety to that. I mean, huge change, and I'm really working hard now to try and implement something like that in older people's areas. I think it's got potential to spread to lots of different areas. So we have it now in paediatric intensive care and other paediatric wards across the hospital, but huge change, really simple, really easy, and massively different for families to know that they can just come and see their baby and they are treated completely differently. It makes you feel different. So after a couple of years, we, and I don't know if Anders is still on, Anders was on the call earlier, Anders from Norway and a wee small group of people from Brazil and around the world started this What Matters to You Day. This was the Children's Hospital in Glasgow, where, you know, it's kind of the mothership now, go wild with it. So yeah, so What Matters to You Day is about promoting this idea of what matters culture. It's about doing as much as you can to like embed that idea of asking staff what matters to them, asking families, asking kids, asking everybody, asking each other, and really trying to promote it and celebrate the day. So that day is, I can't remember the date of it this year, but I'll put it up on the chat. It's around about the 9th of June every year. So it'd be great if you could take part, and that's all the countries that take part in it. And as Maureen said earlier, she said 50 countries. So I think my slide's a little bit dated then at 31 countries, but it's been amazing, and it's been amazing the way that it's spread around the world, really, in 10 years. So just to kind of finish on a personal story. So this is me and my dad. My dad moved to the Middle East when I was 2. So we had a kind of like an unconventional relationship. He was there 37 years and then he had a stroke and had to be repatriated to Scotland. By then I'm the only person in the family that talks to him. You know, obviously him and my mum are divorced, the sister doesn't talk to him. So yeah, he wasn't in a good way when he came back. He came straight in a Medifly into hospital, wasn't great. I knew he wasn't going to survive when I seen him coming off the flight. So yeah, an unconventional relationship. He was my dad, and I loved him. And when he was sort of maybe a few weeks before he died, he got moved to an area, and I had connected already with a colleague, Geraldine Marsh, who Maureen mentioned, who worked in older people. And so she had spread the What Matters to Me poster idea in the older people's areas by then. So my dad actually had a What Matters to You. And I did it with him. And I mean, he didn't have anything to do with it, but I said to him, Dad, what matters to you? You know, you fill this in and we'll put it above your bed. And I actually don't think I've included it in this slide set. I did have it, but I thought I wouldn't have enough time to fit all the slides in. So anyway, he said, you matter to me, Jen. And I don't know, you know, the west of Scotland sort of male psyche isn't really one for being articulate about your emotions or opening it or connected to it. So it was something that he'd never said to me before. He said, you matter to me, Jen, I'm really proud of you. So what I realised in that moment was this tool also gives people permission to say things that I don't think that they would say normally, and my dad wouldn't have said that if I hadn't asked him that. If I hadn't used that tool, he wouldn't have said that. And now I've always got that, and I think in the death and the dying aspect of it, there's so much scope for what those conversations can bring. to the family and to bring to those moments, and bringing moments, so important. And of course, I put it in the eulogy, and lots of people actually have got back to me that What Matters conversations have made it into quite a lot of eulogies. So I'd say life is so much brighter when we focus on what truly matters. Thank you very much.
We've had some wonderful comments, Jen, just a couple to reflect back on just very, very quickly before we move on, just to say that people have talked about how it must be such a joy to work with children and to bring this into that space, but also how good this could be also for other areas, for example, in areas such as mental health, where perhaps they can't find the words to express themselves, but just, you know, comments flooding through around how powerful and amazing this is. So thank you so much. Okay, so hopefully in listening to our speakers, Mark and Jen, you've had the opportunity to reflect a little bit on what you're currently doing well in your own practice, but also what you might do differently moving forwards based on the exceptional insights, tips, thoughts that we've had shared today. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, I'll give you a few minutes, but I'd like you to just put into the chat now, but don't press send just yet. I'd like you to put into the chat one thing that you currently feel that you do really well. And once you've written it in the chat, I'll just give you 30 seconds or so. I'm going to ask everyone to press the button send at exactly the same time so that we can all read it. If you've already actioned it, don't worry. But if you haven't, just write it in the chat there and just wait 1 second to press send. And then what we'll do is we'll all be able to see those floods of comments coming through at the same time. So I'll just give you 20 more seconds. Okay, so that's one thing that you feel you do well already. If you want to press send, and we should start to see a flood of thoughts coming through. Wow, lots of things we're already doing well. Great to see. So I'll pick out a few, but if you want to all start by just taking a look at the floods of comments that are coming through, just pick up on what are those things that we're currently celebrating that we're doing well. Straight away, the one that's standing out for me is around listening, coming through really clearly there, supporting planning and listening. Fantastic. Compassion, absolutely. I think that's been reflected a lot in today's conference, that it's not just about the fact that we've already got this compassion, but how do we build on that? Caring and compassion, absolutely. Yeah, wholeheartedly. Lots and lots of thoughts there about listening, taking care and being supportive. Okay, so thinking about that, what is the one thing that you're going to do differently that's going to change your practice from today? I'd like you to do the same again, so pop it down in the chat, but don't press send just yet. I'll just give you 20 seconds to formulate your thoughts. Okay, and when you're ready, you can press send. Oh, wow. So many things. I think we might be seeing a flood of comments for a while, given how many of us are on the call today. So you've got plenty of time to digest some of these coming through. Straight away, seeing lots about asking the question, what matters to you, what matters to them, what matters every day. Absolutely sharing with colleagues, getting the message out there. So important, spreading the word. Rephrasing the question, thinking about how you frame in that moment. Find out what matters most to some of my care colleagues and MDT staff. Absolutely. I think that message has been echoed throughout today's presentations as well, about recognising staff wellbeing as well in this situation. Fantastic. I'll just give you a minute to read through some of the other comments that have come through on the chat today before I pass on to our next section around what's next.